Bash is on. There's ILT20 on, and there's also SA20 and what else?
There's
BPL.
the international T20 in Dubai, and then the Bangladesh
Yeah,
Premier
the
League.
BPL, right? The Bangladesh
There's
Premier League.
also the Oman D20, but I don't think anybody cares about that, so I won't count
Okay, that's fair.
it.
And the best thing about all these T20I leagues is, I think it is one of the rare occasions when there's actually good quality cricket going on everywhere. It's not like
Yeah,
uh, one league has all the good players or everyone else is suffering. I think there's a good divide right now. I mean, all the four leagues have some good players here and there, and it is kind of
yeah,
great.
like the Big Bash in Australia, they always have their good domestic talent. They draw in some other names. I'm surprised by the talent that's in the UAE league. It's called the International T20, right? Is that its official
Yes,
name?
International League T20 or something, ILT, somewhere I think.
ILT, yeah. Most of the West Indian players are there from the few games I've seen. I've seen some older guys. I think Imran Tahir is there. David
Yes.
Aziz is there. Those kind of players. Uh, the SA20 in South Africa. What are your thoughts on that one in its first season?
Yeah,
The
actually,
crowd's been pretty good.
you know, we not only the crowd and obviously the crowd would be good because South African crowd has not seen T20 league for a while. I think how how far was the Manzi league? I think it was 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. I think.
Yeah,
So that must have been nice for them to get a new series. So obviously that is exciting, but also the production quality. Actually, the production quality is
it's very nice.
probably
Yeah,
this. Yeah, it is almost. I think it's the second best after whatever Sony provides on its streaming service. I don't think there's that quality of production. Obviously, IPL and PSL.
unfortunately,
I
in
think.
um
Yeah.
in America, I can't watch it. The official broadcaster here. Normally, we have games split between ESPN and Hello TV, but right
Mhm.
now this is on ICC TV. So a lot of people aren't really fond of spending the money to watch it because that's another
Um,
quasi streaming service that we have to uh, pay for. I've seen people upset
okay.
with Willow TV because cricket is all they do. So like they should have gone after the rights for it, but it is what it is.
Okay. Actually, what happens in India is the whole Geo thing is kind of separating this league from the other. So it is basically not on TV. Everything else, I think, outside of BPL is on TV. I mean, there's BBL, also Big Bash is on TV, and I think ILT20 is also on TV. But Geo Cinema has exclusively kind of you know, owned the rights for the live stream, and actually they're doing a really good job. It's I think there's something called the uh, stump view, and there's the uh, what's that camera that comes on the zipper? What's that?
That's
Spider
the
cam, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
spider cam
So yeah,
thing
they
that
also
hit
have a
Andre
spider cam
Murphy
view.
in the head.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it is really nice because even though there are like four leagues going on, everything seems really exciting. I mean, I am in almost enjoying everything that is going on right now. Obviously, ILT20 has Joe Root, so obviously he is one of
Yeah,
the best, regardless of what format it is. And as I said, there's Smith somewhere, there's other guys somewhere, but it is all fun, I guess.
yeah. I think there was a point where all the Fab Four were in action at the same time. I think Smith was playing in the Bash, Root in Dubai, Kane and wait, is Kane playing in India? I'm not sure.
No, no, no.
He's
Kane is
not.
not in India.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
So close.
Yeah.
Three of the four.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you can go back a few days when India was playing Sri Lanka. Then he was playing. I mean, Virat Kohli was playing in India, and
Kane
Kane
was in
Williamson was
Pakistan.
playing in Pakistan. Yeah, so that was the point where everyone was playing. So that was, the point where there was everyone involved. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, the time's gone. But another fun thing about particularly Big Bash, because I think in last what 4 years we have memed Big Bash a lot. I think there was kind of this whole self-deprecating humor that had
Yeah.
been associated with the Big Bash for what 3 4 years. I think
It's come
I
back though.
remember
It's come
that.
back very well.
Yes, yeah. This year, Big Bash has actually been really great because I think at some point there was this whole situation where Big Bash kind of became women's Big Bash's ugly cousin or something, because obviously the quality had gone really really down, because there was no international player involved in it, and even the game quality in general was pretty low. I think people said there was no crowd involved, which was kind of a big issue. But this year, I think things have changed big time, because there's a lot of crowd that is coming up, and obviously, we as we have seen, the tournament has been really great with the obviously the arrival of Aussie national players, and even outside of them, I think this time you can actually see some of the local talent that has been really good. Starting with
Dooley.
someone like Josh. Oh yes, Patty Dooley. Yeah, he has been fun. I think people. Yes, actually, it is. That is what Big Bash needed. Actually, they needed some of that meme power that has now come to them.
Yeah,
I think
before
there's some
Dooley
really good.
was I remember it was Clive Rose. He was
Oh
the
yeah,
he was the meme player. But Dooley is actually very good. I've seen him play for uh Hobart.
Hobart. Yeah,
That's the team I've been following because they have Shadab Khan before he
Fahimash.
got injured. They have Atif
Yeah.
Ali and Fahim Ashraf. And Dooley has impressed me. He's been genuinely very good. And
Yeah, actually, on similar note, I think this there are a lot of players that have debuted this year itself. As you talked about Dooley, there's also, I think, McSweeney, who also debuted around the same time. I think it was his
mhm,
second game actually. He debuted a little earlier, but he has actually been one of the best white ball players in Aussie domestic setup, and he has done well for Heats as well. So, I mean, there's actual outcome. There's actual talent that is coming out of
yeah.
Big Bash, which is a really big deal. As you said, there's a obviously Dooley, and there's also, I mean, Todd Murphy is kind of now in the national setup itself. I think he'll be coming to India. So I
Did
think
you
it is a really.
did you see the guy? I think he was playing the last. I think it may have been the Thunder versus the Scorchers. I forgot exactly what the teams were, but he got banned from bowling off his first like three balls because I believe he bowled a beamer his first ball or
Yeah,
second
yeah,
ball, and then a wide, and then his other, and then another beamer. So he got banned from
yeah.
bowling. I haven't seen that happen in quite some time. It's always kind of funny if
Actually,
this
yeah,
shit
I
happens.
think the last time it happened was actually in an ODI. I remember someone got banned. Like I think it was Perry. Perry actually got banned for doing back-to-back bumpers. I think she
Yeah.
missed. It was kind of raining or something. I think it is Ashes 2019.
Oh, and the ball
So
slipped
in
out.
rain, I think yep, the ball slipped out. It almost went over the batter side. So it was, and it happened twice. So she was, I think, almost immediately banned, but she did not go for 8 runs in that one delivery. I think she did not
I
get to
think they
bowl anything.
I saw a post that showed the bowling card from that big bash match, and his economy was like 48 because I believe he had only got one legal delivery in, and the rest went for runs.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that match itself was really good. I think what 400 or 414 runs were scored in that game, and actually it was a really good chase, even
Yeah.
though Renegades fell short by what 10 runs or something. Because I think what Big Bash has missed for a long time is actual good games like this. I mean, where runs are scored and chased as well. Because a lot of time it is either one team scoring big and other team not even competing, or either both teams being really bad. But this season that has completely changed. I think there's been games where general competition has been really good, and I think this game was kind of you know that way. So it was
Yeah,
pretty good. And I think you'd remember that one game where Steve, how do you pronounce his name? Is it Eskenazi or Eskenazi? How
Nazi.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eskenazi. He basically carried his bat in a
Hmm.
chase, and the team still failed to win by what, 3 or 4. I think they lost by 4 runs or something,
Yeah, the
which was
quality is
really
crazy.
weird because yeah, he's he's a really weird guy. I think he scored 25 ball 50 in the next game or something, in the Renegades game, where the whole 8 runs of one ball happened.
Yeah. So
So
let's also talk about the reintroduction of the test players into the bash, especially Steve Smith. He's been the standout. He's been in some ridiculous form. I believe he has two hundreds and
yeah,
a 50 in his first 3 games.
uh, it-
Uh,
actually I think it's 4 games now.
4 games now.
Yeah, so he has 200s, a 50, and a 30 odd of maybe 40 or something. And
When
he's been really good.
when you have a guy who's such a interesting stroke maker as Steve Smith is, and you put him in T20 and he starts performing at the level that he is, it's just box office content. You can't not watch it. I see Steve Smith playing some gorgeously ridiculous shots in those centuries. It's just when Steve Smith is in form in it's something you have to watch. When he's in form in T20, it's something that you bring your whole family to watch. It's just so much fun to see him go off in the white
Yeah,
ball format.
actually, I remember when he scored his first 100. I think he got run out on 101, and people were really angry on. I think it was Moses Enriquez who got him run out,
Yeah.
and people were really really angry on him because it looked like Smith could get what, 140 or 150 there,
Mhm.
because that was what, 15th over when he got to his turn, and did not really take a lot of time to get going. And I remember one thing that is, obviously that also comes with the Steve Smith's unorthodox technique. That is how he hacks into the leg side. If you'd see some of his sixes, they're mostly kind of hacking the ball on the leg side, and it kind of goes really far. If you'd see the highlights even in today's game, I think he had what, 4 or 5 sixes today. Most of them are on leg side, and they are basically
Yeah.
just wild slogs, but actually very well middled wild slogs. So it is not really a slog, but uh, well thought out slog kind of. And it is really good,
Yeah.
both funny and entertaining to watch. Because we see someone like Babar Azam or Virat Kohli, they are kind of more traditional, or
Hmm.
even Kane Williamson. Kane Williamson is also pretty, simple. Even Joe Root, sometimes the only shot he has is the scoop, except that it is pretty, pretty traditional. But Steve Smith is fun to watch in that way.
Yeah.
And
There's also the Bangladesh Premier League going on. A lot of the
hmm,
foreign players in that one are I've seen now after the tests and ODIs are done, I've seen a lot of Pakistanis go over there. Basically, our whole circuit minus Babar Azam is over there. I think there's a few Afghan players over there as well. Um, I've I've enjoyed it. It's been a kind of meme league. I'm sure you've seen the clips of the bad umpiring and Shakib Al Hassan just going off on the umpires.
yeah,
Did you
that
see that clip of him like us like basically charging the square leg umpire after wide wasn't given?
yeah, I've seen that, and it is kind of scary. Actually, I can, sometimes I like Shakib Al Hasan. Sometimes he is not so likable, but you know you cannot deny that he brings a certain kind of interest in the game.
Yeah.
Because everyone keeps thinking what is
Mhm.
he going to do next. Because I remember in that Pakistan game in the World Cup, right, where he was given out, and then the third umpire gave him out, even though there was clearly bat involved. I
Yeah.
think actually he took it really well. I thought he would try to
Yeah,
kill the umpire.
I see him misbehave a lot with the umpires only in Bangladesh, but when he's outside, he seems to behave himself pretty well. I haven't seen him do anything too crazy outside of Bangladesh. For this BPL, there have been 3 centuries so far, and there it's kind of a meme list of centurions. There's Azam Khan, that's Moin Khan's son, the kind of fat wicketkeeper batsman. He scored 109. There's Usman Khan, who's opener for Quetta Gladiators in PSL. He scored 100, and then if the Had Chachu scored 100 as well. I believe Shore Malik is also over there playing as well.
Yeah,
It's
he is there. Actually, saw he scored what, 75 of 35 today. Pretty good.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's been fun to watch. The quality isn't as good as the other leagues on at the moment, but uh, I've enjoyed it because the time slot for, for, for me it's on right in the morning when I wake up, so
Mhm.
it's easy to watch. Bash is really hard to watch. It's like it's
Yeah, it is
the
almost the
the, the
opposite.
first game starts at 12:30 p.m. So I usually just watch the highlights of that. So
Okay, okay, that is
India
Australia.
also had a white ball series against New Zealand. Do you want to walk us through that?
Oh yes, actually we can go through the Sri Lankan series first, because
Okay.
not the ODI itself. The ODIs were pretty boring. There's not much to review there, but the T20 series was actually pretty exciting. The first two games, they were really close, and actually when the second game, obviously when Sri Lanka had won the second game and the third game began, you could actually think that Sri Lanka could win this, because even in the power play in the third game when India started batting, actually Sri Lanka looked in good control until like the fourth or fifth over. So, you know, I kind of have my issues with Sri Lanka, and they are
Hmm.
simple issues actually. The thing is, they won the Asia Cup, which is good, and we saw why they won it. Obviously, there were a few players who did really well for them, but I think my issue with Sri Lanka in general is that it seems like they have a certain go-to players who do well for them, and outside of that, seems like everyone is kind of pretty inconsistent. Now, obviously, you cannot bring this point up, which I'm going to, because it is kind of uh, irregular, because it can happen or not happen to anyone. But
Hmm.
what I also noticed with the Sri Lanka in Asia Cup and the World Cup was how lucky they were. Like, obviously, that is not something they can control or do. But uh, if you see their game, obviously the Asia Cup final or even their game against India, you'd see a lot of times. Obviously, I think Rajpaksha was dropped what, thrice in the Asia Cup final. I remember two of those.
Hmm.
I think two or three times. And even in the India game, you'd see a lot of times when there would be misses, they would fall in no man's land. I think that happened 4 or 5 times in the power play itself. I think then it did not happen after the power play, but in the power play it was pretty prevalent. So, and I thought it was just a one-time thing, but if you see their game against Ireland in the World Cup, you'd see that happens again. Actually, I think it was Kushal Mendes who, like 3 or 4 times, he would slice the ball off his bat and it would almost carry to the fielder, but go just over. So it had been kind of happening with Sri Lanka till the Australia game, or I think there was a game before they played Australia, And even in the Australia game, if you see a lot of bad fielding and this was involved. And I think once uh, the oppositions figured that out, their craft out, I think since then they have been struggling again. It almost seems like they were really good at capitalizing on any mistake that the opponent is making, as we saw in the Asia Cup final against Pakistan, or in the Super 4 game against India. They did what the same thing. Basically whatever
Hmm.
mistakes India or Pakistan made, they were there to capitalize on it. But it seemed like once those mistakes were out, I think Sri Lanka kind of took a backseat, and they pretty much kind of fell apart. And even this series, it was pretty much the same, because if you remember the second game where Sri Lanka won, they did
Yeah.
really well with the when I think India bowled what, seven no balls? I think eight no balls.
Yeah, yeah.
India bowled,
I
and
think
I think they were,
Arshdeep Singh had quite a few, right?
yeah, he bowled six of them. I think it's a new record or something of uh, I think most no balls in a spell or something.
Wow.
Plus, I think there's two more no balls. I think Umran Malik bowled one, and I think someone
Mhm.
else bowled one too. So there were like eight, and those eight no balls, those eight free hits went for 35 or 36 runs. So that was pretty much a huge difference
Quite
maker.
costly. Yeah.
Yep. And on the other hand, Sri Lanka really bowled really well in the power play. They swung the ball was swinging, and they took a lot of it, took pretty much everything they could. I think they got what, four wickets in the power play itself.
Mhm.
So, firstly, chasing 200. What are you chewing, by the way? It is making a lot of noise.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to open a package. I put it under the table because I thought it wouldn't be picked up on the mic. Sorry about that.
It's fine. Yes, so actually, I think those first two games were pretty much the same, because Sri Lanka took advantage of any mistake India made and took both the games very close. I think
Hmm.
they could have won the first one. They lost it by 2 runs, I think, 2 or 3 runs. And obviously, the second game, they were so far ahead in the game that even after conceding what, 90 something runs between the 11th and 12th and 18th over, they still won, because obviously
Hmm.
India were 70 for 5 or something. So I think that is kind of Sri Lanka's been, that's been kind of Sri Lanka's thing, that they do really well to capitalize on mistakes. But if there's an opponent that is kind of not giving them any chance, then they kind of crumble really quickly. Then I
Yeah.
think it is kind of becoming their thing, that they run out of ideas kind of quickly. That is been the major theme with them. The If you remember that Stoinis 50 in the World Cup, it was what, 17 deliveries or something.
Hmm.
I think at one point Hasranga was bowling uh, at a really weird angle, if I remember correctly. It is almost Kedar Jadhav kind of action. So
So
that
speaking of the Sri Lankan team, like they're having some issues behind the scenes as well. I think some story came out that a bunch of them got caught up in a cult in Australia. So I don't know what issues they're having behind the scenes. You heard about that, right? They got trapped in a cult when they went for the World Cup in Australia.
no, actually, I don't, and I
Yeah,
don't really feel like
yeah,
listening. What is going on?
yeah. They got caught up in a Chinese cult while they were in Australia. Uh, I think a couple of them got in trouble for gambling or
Uh,
something of the like, and then one of them got in a rape scandal. So they've just been
oh
having all
yeah.
sorts of issues behind the scenes off the pitch. But I think that cult thing might be one of the more strange stories I've heard coming from a team.
Actually, because a cricket team is supposed to, reach a certain destination on a certain day, it actually becomes even weirder because
Yeah.
someone is going to be waiting for them. So
I
you
think
don't
they have it
want
on the
them
off
to.
days in between matches. I think that's probably when all that stuff happened.
Okay, then that is, I mean, that is, see, uh if a player falls into trouble owing to something that has happened, uh, you know to them rather than done by them,
Hmm.
then it's a different kind of a different issue, because
Yeah.
obviously then you would probably sympathize with them a little bit. But I don't know, dude. I mean, this
Yeah.
whole
What's
thing with
happened to
the,
them in Australia seems to be entirely their fault. Like, it's
yeah,
it's not hard to not get involved in that kind of stuff. But
y-
yeah.
yeah, it is actually pretty, it has been one of those situations where you do not want to you just don't want to think about it. Yes, because what happened with Gunathilaka was, you want to use the word unfortunate, but I think at this point everyone knows that he has done some things in the past as well. I think
Yeah.
he has already kind of exceeded the whole give me another chance kind
Hmm.
of deal, because
Yeah.
I think it is his sixth or seventh offense actually of indiscipline.
Really.
So,
Wow.
yep, I think there's a whole. I mean, you have to be really bad to have a whole Wikipedia sections for your misgivings. I mean, he has
Yeah.
like two paragraphs worth of it. I think
Wow.
actually you could actually read it out, and it is pretty bad because he has apparently been a part of some scuffles
Hmm.
in hotels where he has actually tried to attack some of the hotel staff. I think it was something like that. And other than that as well, he has been part of some smaller stuff on the field with some send-offs here and there.
Yeah.
And then
It's
there's
sad to
some
see too
indiscipline.
because he's not a bad batsman. Like it's kind of like what happened with the Sandeep Lamishani. Like he was so talented, and just seeing them throw away their talent like that just sucks.
Yeah, I think what happened with Lamichan is kind of a really big stretch, because uh, no one was really expecting something that explosive to come out all of a
Oh
sudden.
right,
Because
yeah,
at
yeah.
least in Gurat Helka's case, actually, it has been happening since what 2017.
Hmm.
He has all. I mean, he is only thing he's consistent about is one disciplinary issue every year. Actually, he has he, he has let's see, I think he has one in 2017, there's one in 2018, I think there's none in 2019 or something, and then the COVID ends, and then he
Hmm.
has some more issues actually.
Yeah.
So he has one in 2017, 18. He had multiple in 2018 actually. Then there's three more in 2021, actually four of them. There's four different things
Wow.
uh, in just 4 months. That's a lot. So basically, he breached like multiple code of conducts for both ICC and SLC, Sri Lankan Cricket.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then obviously the whole biosecure bubble breach that happened in England, if you remember correctly. The
Yeah.
whole him, Kushal Mendes and Roshan Dick being out in Durham. That was one
Didn't they
thing.
both like get banned for a year each after that, and then that
Ye-
got like yeah,
Yeah, they basically rescinded the ban later on. I
yeah.
mean, they got banned in July, and in January 2022, basically Sri Lankan cricket kind of decided to lift the ban. I think there was some back behind the scenes stuff where I think it was I don't know who it was, but uh, man, I don't remember the name. Uh, Actually, what happened is I think it was someone who kind of threatened to leave Sri Lanka and join US cricket or something, and which kind of triggered Sri Lankan cricket to basically take a step back and kind of forgive them the
Mhm.
situation, which does not sound good, but ultimately, I guess it has been in their favor. I think Kushal Mendes has kind of mended his ways recently. I think he's since that disciplinary breach. I think he has been really good. There's
Yeah.
been no nothing on his part except
Well,
for.
coming off of that tangent, let's discuss the India and New Zealand series, the ODIs.
Hmm. Actually, in that series, the biggest thing that I'm noticing is yeah, I think New Zealand is kind of in observing phase. I think it looks like they just came here to observe what is going on in India, because obviously the World Cup would be here in October and November.
Yeah,
So obviously maybe they want to rest Saudi and Williamson. That's their choice. Obviously, Bolt is in playing in ILT20 right now.
I think
Yes,
so.
yes, he's playing. Yeah, he's playing in ILT20, and I think Guptill is gone. I guess Guptill is that is probably the end of the line for him. I don't think he would be coming back. I think Finn Allen is the future for them
Yep,
from a general
definitely.
perspective. Yep, and as I said, the whole thing is they have got the new guys, and seems like they wanted to rest their senior players and probably just observe what is going on in India. And that kind of showed in the series. The second game was really one-sided, but the first game, I think we can talk about the first game because it was really good, and it was probably one of the best ODIs we've seen in general. First of all, uh, what is your general kind of general opinion on Michael Bracewell? Because sometimes he is really good, sometimes he
Yeah,
is really bad.
he's very
Eh,
off and on there. Um, I like him. Like as a bowler, he can get it done. Against us, I think that last ODI he bowled very well. Uh, as a batsman, I think he's someone who has his spot semi locked in the New Zealand team. I think if an occasion ever arises where they would need somebody who's either better at batting or better at bowling, they could replace him. But I think it's very capable at both, and he's shown it. He's just a bit inconsistent at it. Sometimes he looks like he barely knows how to hold a bat, and sometimes he looks like Don Parabbin. So there's not a lot of in between for him.
And I remember his bowling actually is something that has been, creating waves recently. I think he was a pretty good starting from that tri series. I think it was T20 tri series with Pakistan and Bangladesh, where he was borderline unplayable. And I think there was something with that series because he looked really good in that series in general. I think
Yeah,
there was a point where he looked like uh, you know where the batters just wanted to play him out rather than trying to attack him. And on a similar note, there was the series against Ireland where he actually pulled off what he could pull off in the game versus India. I
yeah.
think they needed 85 when they were 8 down, and he actually did it with Loki Ferguson actually. So the same guy that was there and the same guy that was here, he actually did. And in on both occasions, his 100, I think there it was 127 of 82, and here it was 140 of 78. Kind of reminds me of Jacob Oram, doesn't?
Yeah,
Have did you watch Jacob Oram
I
ever
did. I
live?
did.
Or I think he was one of those guys who could, he's obviously an underrated all-rounder, just like Jacob Oram used to be. And there was this one innings that Jacob Oram played. Actually, I think it was his only ODI 100, where New Zealand needed, I think, 336 against Australia, and they were kind of languishing around 200 or something after 38 or 40 overs,
Hmm.
and he almost won the game to, for them with, I think he scored 120 or 130, and they fall short by five, I think 4 runs. They ended at 332 or something. And this innings by Braswell kind of reminded me of that, because back then New Zealand used to be like that, where they would collapse a lot, and someone would like McCallum, Macmillan, or Oram had to rescue them, and it kind of happened here as well. So I actually got reminded. I think I actually posted about the game that this game reminded me of. There was this game in 2007 where New Zealand actually chased down 350 after being 60 for 5, and this game kind of had that similar flow. So
Yeah.
what was your general thought? I think you might have watched the game itself.
The timing for me was kind of weird, so I couldn't really watch it live. But you're referring to that first ODI, right?
Yes.
Obviously high scoring. I think a lot of teams, after seeing the total that India put up, especially seeing that double century, they would have kind of gone into their shell a little bit when they kind of came time for them to bat. But I like that New Zealand was able to bat aggressively, but at the same time not kind of lose their temperament and go completely off the rails. They came very close. I know if it were Pakistan chasing in that situation, we would have folded for 180. So I'm actually a really big fan of this current New Zealand batting setup. I like Finn Allen. I like his aggression. I'm a big fan of Conway and Phillips. Uh, I like Latham as well. I think this team, if they adapt properly to Indian conditions, they could be a contender for the World Cup later this year.
And it's not like even a thing where they are good here and there. I think they are almost good everywhere. They were
Yeah.
good in Pakistan. They were even, I mean, again, if even if they do not win in the tomorrow's game. And did I tell you I'm actually really close by the stadium? The stadium is actually
Oh,
visible
really?
from here.
Wow.
Yeah, it's I'm actually in the city, and the Holker Stadium is what like 2 or 3 miles away from here. So it is actually visible, the whole deck and
Yeah,
the floodlights are visible from actually visible from my window. So it's a nice view actually.
that's cool.
Yeah, so what I was saying is, with the whole New Zealand thing, with them being really competitive, I think it has been something that has come up with Kane Williamson and even now Tom Latham's captaincy. I think that is probably their biggest strength, because uh, even earlier, I think when Stephen Fleming was captain, he used to bring the best out of his team. But I think back then they used to a lot of times fall short in big tournaments. You remember a lot of times them kind of losing their way around the quarterfinals or the semi-finals at the World Cup. But once McCullum became the captain, and even Kane Williamson became kind of a part of leadership group, I think they have done really well, and this series showed that as well.
Yeah, I saw a graphic that was basically showing how many times New Zealand has lost in knockouts. But what I found more interesting is not how many times they've lost, but how many times they've actually made it that far in a tournament. It seems like they're coming out of the group stage almost every time. Like they're basically a lock to make it to the knockout rounds based on recent history. They've been very solid. They just can't get over that hump of actually winning a tournament. They won the World Test Championship, the inaugural one, but I think in the next few years we'll see them win something. They came very close in 2019. We could talk about that forever, but I think they could win a World Cup that's hosted in pretty much any country. They just have to get over that finals hump and get there.
I remember the last time World Cup was in India, it was 2011, and even there they kind of dominated the group stage. They, I think, lost one game. I think it was lost to Australia or someone. I think it was Australia. I think whom lost to, and they even defeated South Africa in actually a really small chase. I think it was they had to defend kind of a small total. It was around 200 or something, and they defended it really well. And then obviously we have seen them doing well in 2015 and 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of see this whole thing with them not really being constrained to what conditions are outside. I think they have a lot of times shown that they do not need to be bound by just the fact that the tournament is going to be here or there.
Yeah,
It seems like they. I think the whole Stephen Fleming era was kind of beginning of it, and basically McCallum took it one step further with the 2015 World Cup,
yeah.
and then now Kane Williamson and Tom Latham have kind of brought it even further, I guess.
I think that the 2015 World Cup final was one of the most anticlimactic sports events I've seen because in New
Mm,
Zealand and Australia they had met in the group stage of that tournament and they had an amazing game. I remember being a pretty low scoring game, right? And
yeah,
it was a great game. And then New Zealand got to the finals the way they did, that win over South Africa, and then they made it to the finals at the G, and then Stark basically sealed it in the first over. Uh,
yeah.
that ball on McCollum. I,
The
I,
World Cup
I was
final
very
was actually
excited for
pretty
the final.
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, the World Cup final was pretty sad actually. I mean, to this day I don't know what happened there, but something really bad happened, I guess, because they were what 150 for three or something, and it looked like they would get a really good total, and
Hmm.
then whole James Faulkner bowling those cutters thing
Yeah.
happened, and I guess they just almost fell apart after that, and there was
I was
some.
younger when that happened in 2015. I may have been like 11 years old. I'm not exactly sure, 12, around there. I remember watching it, but to this day, the only part of that whole game I remember vividly is that ball from Stark, and I feel that
Yeah,
that ball pretty much encapsulates what happens to New Zealand in knockouts when they have a chance. They just get done by something like that. And I think McCullum said afterwards that uh, he just forgot, like in all the excitement of the final, he just forgot to watch the ball. I think that was his quote after the final.
okay, that is funny. That is actually funny if he actually said that. Because every time you remember that game, I think first thing that comes to mind is the obviously the league game between Australia and New Zealand, and even there the theme was kind of similar because New Zealand started really well, right?
Yeah,
And they suddenly fell apart because I think Australia got bowled out for 145, if I remember correctly, and New Zealand were 80 for two or something when the break happened because obviously the Aussie innings got over really quickly, so they decided to have a break when New Zealand innings got to 14 or 15 overs or something, and after that they almost lost the game. I mean, they were there was a point where I think it was Adam Milne or someone who had to like keep out two or three deliveries from Mitchell Stark when New Zealand were 9 down. So obviously, there's this whole recurring theme of New Zealand kind of falling apart every time, every time Australia comes in front of them, and
Yeah.
is kind of become really funny in recent times because if they kind of do the opposite against India, where they
Yeah.
almost become unbeatable, and then there's like Australia and they kind of fall apart. Although
Mhm.
they did beat Australia here in the T20 World Cup, but even outside of that, their general record against Australia in the ICC tournaments has kind of been pretty bad to say the least. Eh,
So what's coming up in the future? I saw something saying that Virat and Rohit are being rested for the New Zealand T20s, right?
yeah, but I think that seems more like something that people would say to, just to keep people off their back,
Yeah.
the media people off their back, because it seems like I think they are done for the T20s from
Hmm.
what I can see.
Yeah. And
Mostly,
then
uh,
Pakistan agreed to play some T20s against Afghanistan
yes, yeah, I saw the news today.
After Australia didn't want to play with them. Politics aside, because I don't want to get into that, I think the reason why the PCB did this is because here's the last four games we played against Afghanistan have all gone very deep, and there's kind of a spice around those games. There's some beef between the two sides, so that game last year in the Asia Cup, that was amazing. So I think they just thought if we play against them, it'll be easy money for the board because people are gonna watch it. Um, Rivalry wise, it's the closest we'll get to having uh, a Pakistan versus India type feel in bilaterals. With Afghanistan, at least that's the closest we've gone. It's always a tense at, atmosphere. Um, but interestingly, it was supposed to be an ODI Super League series, but I heard they changed it to T20s because both teams had already qualified for the World Cup. And I'm not sure why they did that, seeing that the ODI World Cup is this year, so you should get all the practice in the format that you can. Maybe it's because T20s are Afghanistan's premier format, so they wanted to make it as competitive as possible. But I still think it should have been ODIs.
From what it looks like, I think you put it really well with the original point. I think seems like Pakistan are trying to test something with Afghanistan and their whole, this whole thing of Afghanistan and Pakistan having a good rivalry because it has gotten really good recently, and seems like Pakistan feel it could be utilized for firstly because it is cricket and cricket is fun. You know, the biggest point of cricket is finance. I mean, obviously the boards want to make money,
Yep.
and seems like that is what the board wants to do. They want to cash in, and well, recently I think it has been really good. The Firstly, the game in Asia Cup kind of got a little too tense. I think tense is a really small word for what happened
The
there,
last two
but
games, in the last two games between the two sides have had some violence in the crowds. There were people throwing chairs in the Asia Cup match, and then when we met in the World Cup 2019, there were some people who had fistfights in the stands. So obviously, you want to see intensity, but you don't want to see that. But yeah, I hope it's a good series. It's always fun to play
Yeah,
against
I mean,
Afghanistan.
yeah, T20 is actually probably the format where Afghanistan really excels. I
Hmm.
think it is that one format where they almost always do well, or probably outside of some batting issues here and there.
Hmm.
But it is really good. I think with their bowling, their spin quality, and now that they have Faruqi and I think it is Ahmad. I think I don't remember his name properly, but seems like Afghanistan has come a really long way now that they have an actual bowling lineup and a few good batters as well. Uh, who's the wicketkeeper guy who opens? I forgot the name.
Rahmatullah
Rahmat Shah.
Shabazz.
Okay, Gurbaz, right. Rahmatullah Gurbaz.
Right?
He is
I think so. I
obviously
think
a
so.
talented batter. Yeah, he is also a really good batter. So
Yeah, there's
looks like
Gurbaz and Zazai. I think those are there.
yeah, and it looks good actually because seems like they have this whole setup really well with their batting, their bowling, and now that they have a you know kind of a budding rivalry with the Pakistan, this could
Yeah.
actually be one of those situations where something is developing out of the usual because we're kind of gotten used to the same games here and there
Hmm.
and not enough rivalries that have been developing. The only one I think has been going good is the Ireland Zimbabwe because even they have been doing really well
Yo,
in recent times.
the crowds there have been so good. It makes me
Yeah.
so happy to
Oh,
see those crowds in Zimbabwe.
yep. And even the quality of games has been really good. I think there's been two ODIs that, and they've been, I think, 1-1, and the T20 series was also good. I think Zimbabwe won it 2-1, and in generally speaking, I think uh, we are at a point where a lot of uh, how can I say, a lot of players uh, from both teams have kind of become that level of famous where the name is kind of enough. Also, there's
Yeah.
Sikandar Raza, there's Joshua Little, who has been really good. I think some of his deliveries were really
Mhm. Yeah.
something to,
He
you
made
know,
the ICC T20 team of the year.
of the year. Yeah. So I think it was pretty admirable how well they have been doing recently, both.
Definitely.
And yep, and it is kind of one of my points because what I wanted to bring in focus is see, uh, even at this point, there's not a lot of support from ICC's end when it comes to helping someone like uh, Zimbabwe or Ireland, who are now kind of in a revival phase.
Yeah.
But you could actually see that there's people who want to support the team. There's obviously players who want to get better for the team, and as we said, Zimbabwe's coach Houghton has actually, helped the team make big improvements recently. So it is kind of setting a really good example where not everything has to be taken to ICC in general. You know, where it does not have to be something where we just go start putting it up to ICC where it is ICC's mistake or not, because seems like there are things that boards can do themselves. Yes, obviously ICC has to help them, the fund allocation and everything else being a really important thing because it helps them. But I think there is some amount of work that the boards have to put in themselves as well. It might not be just financially, but in general terms as well. As we said, They had Lalchand Rajput as their coach, who was not really good, and he had to be replaced. And they finally found a worthy guy. And once you find someone like that, then firstly there's a lot of scope for improvement in players, and seems like Horton found it really well. So I think that is a really good lesson for the teams that are kind of lower on the ICT scale. That not everything has to do with you know with finding help from ICC or something. There's
Yeah.
smaller things that the teams can do as well, and it actually feels nice to see cricket being back in Zimbabwe in that way actually,
Yeah.
where there's a lot of support.
Well, LBK, it was great talking to you again. Uh, it was fun to have this conversation, and I hope we could discuss next week as well.
Sure, it was great talking to you as well.